Unless, of course, you're a cleric of war. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome back to the RPG Daily, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. And today we're talking about the last divine domain of the clerics, war. That's right, war. So, of course, let me know in the comments below what you think of this divine domain, so a little bit later on we can go compare them all and see who is the best. So what is the war domain? Well, war is an interesting thing. It is horrific. It is terrifying. It also brings out the worst in people. But it also brings out the best, most heroic side of people. Of course, talking about this and what war is purely off of my minimal knowledge about it. I've never been a soldier. I've never been in the military. I don't pretend to have understood that. But what I do base this off is works of fiction, fantasy information, stuff like that is very fictionalized. And I think it's important to make that distinction with war and Dungeons and Dragons, is we are dealing with a fictionalized war, not the actual realities of what it is. So in a fictionalized war, I should say, it does bring out the worst in people and the best at the same time. Big acts of desperation lead to acts of heroism. That's what comes out of war in our stories. And, more importantly, war never changes. The deities of war are the types that look over the soldiers. They look over those who are fighting. They inspire them to carry on and keep going. They have a lot of different views on how war should be. There are those who thrive off the depraved and the disgusting side of war. There are those who relish in the glory and the heroism of war, and there are those who have just kind of a neutral view on it and just enjoy all things that it is. The war domain clerics, though, are really the ass kickers. They're the ones wading into battles, swinging their weapons, honoring their deities the only way they know how, through battle. It's quite something. A couple well-known deities of war are Tempest, Bane, Grumsh, and Torm. So how does the war divine domain cleric actually work? Of course, you're a cleric, so you're getting your spells every so often as you level up. At level 1, you're getting Divine Favor and Shield of Faith. These are your defense and offensive capabilities given to you early on. Divine Favor gives you an extra 1d4 radiant damage on your weapon attacks, and Shield of Faith gives a +2 armor class to not only you, but any willing creature you decide to cast it on. At level 3, you get your magic weapon and a spiritual weapon. Now, a spiritual weapon we talked about. It's a cleric staple, but magic weapon, not so much. A magic weapon turns any non-magical weapon into a magic weapon, giving it a +1 bonus to attack rolls and damage. But when you cast the magic weapon spell at 4th level, that bonus turns into a +2. And at 6th level spell, it turns into a +3. So it does scale with you as you get stronger and more powerful in your game. At level 5, you have Crusader's Mantle and Spirit Guardians. Crusader's Mantle is not a cleric spell normally, but it is a really good aura. 30-foot radius aura around you. It gives a 1d4 radiant damage to your allies' attacks. At level 7, you gain Freedom of Movement and Stone Skin. Stone Skin could be a great defensive thing if you're in a party with someone who's a little more squishy. Cast the spell on them, their skin turns tough like stone, and they gain resistance to non-magical physical attacks, meaning bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. That comes in handy in a really good way in a pinch. At level 9, you get Flame Strike and Hold Monster. Hold Monster is not a normal cleric spell, but it's kind of interesting. It does just that. It holds the monster in place. You pick a creature within 90 feet of you. 90 feet. You cast your spell. It fails its saving throw. It is now paralyzed, and your whole party can wail on it like they mean business. You can really focus fire a creature, take it down real quick if you can hold it. Now, you can already see these spells are all about enhancing the combat abilities of the cleric. There's a lot here for getting into the martial combat. So the features we got right away: level 1, bonus proficiencies, heavy armor class, and martial weapons. Take your heavy armor, take your martial weapon, and get in there. In addition, at level 1, you get the ability called War Priest. War Priest essentially lets you get an extra attack here and there. A couple times per day, the amount up to your wisdom ability score modifier, when you make an attack action on your turn, you can use a bonus action to also make a melee attack. At level 2, you get your Channel Divinity, which is Guided Strike. Now, Guided Strike means you get a little help from your deity. So when you channel this divinity on your next attack roll, you get a plus 10 to your attack roll. Plus, you get to decide if you want to use that Channel Divinity after you roll the dice, so you can see the number you've rolled, but before the DM tells you what the result is. So if you feel like you've missed, you can say, here, I'm going to use my Guided Strike, add your 10, then tell that to the DM, and then they can tell you if you're hit or miss. At level 6, you get another Channel Divinity, which is even better. It's called War God's Blessing. Like I said, it's another Channel Divinity, but it basically extends your Guided Strike to your allies. When an ally attacks a creature within 30 feet of you, as your reaction, you can guide that strike, and they can add a plus 10 to their hit. So the same rules apply to the rolls, though. You can see what they roll, then choose to use their Guided Strike for them, but it has to be before the DM tells you what the result is. At level 8, you get your Divine Strike, which, of course, adds an extra 1d8 damage to one attack per round, and at level 14, that goes up to 2d8. But I know what you're thinking. What kind of damage does the War Domain Cleric use? Well, it adds the 1d8 and the 2d8 damage are the exact same as whatever weapon they hit them with. So if they hit them with slashing damage, the 1d8 or the 2d8 are slashing damage. If it's bludgeoning, it's bludgeoning. If it's piercing, it's piercing. That's how it works. And at level 17, the Piece de Resistance is Avatar of Battle, where you are War Incarnate, and you just gain resistances to all non-magical physical attacks. Bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. That is a great boost, gives you a whole lot of damage reduction on incoming damage, and lets you stay in the fights a little bit longer. Now, this is supposed to be the epitome of combat. The War Cleric is a warrior through and through, right? They're about crushing skulls, taking names, chewing bubblegum, finishing their bubblegum, and spitting it on the corpses of their enemies. So, how do we make this even cooler? Warcaster, of course. You gotta be in the middle, you gotta be able to maintain concentration sometimes, and it might be useful at times to be able to use a spell instead of a physical attack on an attack of opportunity. You also, though, want to up your damage output, either strength or dexterity, whichever you're choosing. Since this is, though, a heavy weapon, or a heavy armor, I should say, and martial weapon kind of thing, I would say lean into strength. Make this strong. Get your wisdom up, make your strength up there, get your constitution up next. You know, don't worry about being sneaky. Worry about being a tank of damage. A couple other feats stood out. This just reminded me a lot of barbarians as a damage dealer. So I thought of the Sentinel feat, which allows you to get an attack of opportunity even if the enemy has taken a disengage action in their turn. It also, when you hit an enemy with an opportunity attack, they can't move, and also allows you to hit enemies that hit your friends. So that is a really cool thing to just give you more hits. I think the Shield Master feat could come into play here, as when you hit an enemy, it then allows you to shove them with your shield a little bit. I think that's a cool one. And of course, Savage Attacker feat could be very useful for this, as it allows you to re-roll one of your damage dice per turn. So if you roll really crappy, you can re-roll that damage dice once per turn. When you're thinking of the spells you're going to take for this, though, I would really lean into the spells that amplify your abilities. Spells like Haste, that give you extra movement, extra armor class, if that's available to you. If it's not, you can always take a feat that gives you spells from another class. Those do exist. You can look into those feats. Look for spells that enhance your abilities in the fight, almost like a Blade Singer or an Eldritch Knight, and then I think that will make you even more effective in combat. One of the most annoying players I have right now is actually an Eldritch Knight, and he successfully uses his magic every time to just perfectly make himself untouchable. And I think that's really cool, and it's a really fun thing. It's frustrating to me because I want to hit him with something. I want to, make my enemies have a little threat, a little weight to them, but good on him for finding a great build with that Eldritch Knight. That's a tangent. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this video all about the War Divine Domain Cleric. If you have, let me know in the comments below. I've been Richard. Thanks for watching.